All right, Facebook in the news lately. What's his face? Who's the head of Facebook?
Zuckerberg?
Zuckerberg. The Zucks. Looking like a little alien in front of everybody. They were giving him so much grief over that. They were calling it a booster seat. But did you see that?
I did, yeah.
I don't think it was
in front of Congress on a phone book or whatever he was sitting on.
Yeah, they were giving him grief calling it a booster seat, but I just think it kind of like angled his back better. Like if you're going to be sitting there for 5 hours, like you want to have your back at a better angle. I don't think it was a booster seat. But anyway,
I don't know. It was funny, and it makes me wonder how many other people that have been in front of Congress have sat on similar booster seats. Maybe they all do, and it just went viral when he did it. Because everybody loves to hate him.
Yeah, and how he looks like a automaton, and yeah, anyway. Something about that bugged me, that everyone is skewering him and Facebook, and then you got this Cambridge Analytica about, they're selling private information, and Cambridge Analytica is helping the Trump campaign, and Facebook is selling information and blah, blah, blah. But we know that stuff goes on all the time and has been going on for a long time. So something about him and Facebook being paraded in the media and then in front of Congress, something about that bugged me. Just because people's information has been sold for, I don't know. How long? Probably longer than we've been alive.
Yeah. And I think the trigger, sometimes it just takes the right itch to be scratched to make something blow up like that. Mm-hmm. And in my way of thinking, basically it was because of the Cambridge Analytica thing and because of Trump. Because Cambridge Analytica was helping Trump, or purportedly helped the Trump campaign. That was the trigger that made the media say, okay, that's gone too far, because now there's a Trump tie-in and we hate Trump, so okay, now's the time to really start this snowball rolling. The other thing that I thought was interesting, and this is going down a little conspiratorial and a little off topic for the beginning of this thread, is that Mark Zuckerberg was making a lot of noises about running for president.
Oh, he was?
Yeah.
Oh, I missed that.
And I think this was the the establishment basically striking back and cutting him off at the knees and saying, no, we're gonna drag you through the mud right now and end your presidential aspirations. You may be a billionaire, but you're not controllable like the people that come up through the party system. So we're gonna end this conversation topic right now by dragging you through the mud.
Well, that's interesting. I had not heard that one. But I mean, I could see it, certainly. That's really interesting.
Yeah, that's speculation, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if whoever the powers that be or the Democratic National Committee or whoever is thinking about for 2020 or 2024, they don't want Zuckerberg because he's a billionaire and he can't be controlled, and so they cut him off at the knees now by dragging his business through the mud.
Put the kibosh to that right now.
Yep. So I think all those forces came together to make privacy an issue. Like the media actually paid attention because they've been ignoring all these same things for 10 years or whatever.
Yeah, and again, it's like now all of a sudden it's a big deal. Like, ooh, like they're selling your information, they're using your information. Like, hello, they've been doing Facebook and other companies. Heck, even the school you went to, your undergrad school, your high school, they're selling your information to third parties.
Yearbook photos and stuff. Yeah,
you're a commodity. They're making money off your information. Like, come on, this stuff's been going on. So I think that's a good topic to jump in on, this whole digital privacy and security. Where do we start?
I think the first place to start is why. I mean, we've already outlined some of the big, the Facebook and the congressional level, the national level policy stuff. But why, as an individual, would you want to do some of this stuff? And when I think of that, I think of people whose lives have been destroyed by, I'm not going to say no fault of their own, but like something that was small that blew up to something big.
Yes.
And we kind of talked about this as we were preparing the show. If you're a person that works with the public, whether you're a law enforcement officer, a doctor, a lawyer, anybody that could really piss somebody off. I mean, what if that person could look you up? And because they probably can right now, look you up, know where you live, know where you're, where you work, what you drive.
Well, I mean, we talked about it in the news right now. There was that guy, I'm pretty sure it was New York City, who was in a restaurant, and he was fired up about people speaking Spanish, and he was, all like, we're in America, we speak English, blah, 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 that sort of thing. And then he was threatening to call ICE and that sort of thing. And turns out this dude's an attorney, I think is what came out.
And that went viral, I assume.
And it went viral, and they know where he lives, and he's in hiding now.
Right, they're trying to ruin his career and everything. Yeah. Maybe he is a scumbag, but maybe he was drunk. We've all said dumb shit when we were drunk.
Right.
I don't know the whole story, and but does he deserve to have his career and his life ruined? I don't know the answer, but I damn well want to make sure that doesn't happen to me if I ever get drunk and say something dumb.
Right.
Or if I'm not drunk and I say something dumb, or something taken out of context, because you could say something that you're totally honest about and you totally believe, and if it goes viral with the wrong segment of the population, we're so divided in this country right now. You've got special interest groups for every little pet issue. If you say the wrong thing and it gets on their radar, next thing you know, you might have animal rights activists or Antifa or anti-abortion activists, or there's people on both sides of the political spectrum. You could have those people showing up on your door with picket signs or or slashing your tires at night.
Well, I'll get into it a little bit later, hopefully when we touch on virtual protected network, but the whole context thing, what if I hear a patient, or what if I hear someone say snowballing, and I'm like, what's that? And I go look it up online, and my web browsing is not anonymous, and my employer sees my web browsing and is like, whoa, this dude's looking up snowballing on our dime, and I'm just simply trying to figure out what the heck's going on with something I heard.
Client said.
Yeah. And it's taken out of context, right? Or another example would be, we've kind of touched on this, and maybe this will probably be a future show, but what if I don't respect the authority of the Department of Making You Sad, because they're bothering me about what I'm doing on my property with my poultry, and they want to lay down the law, and this, that, and the other, and I upset them, and then they've got all their buddies. They round up all their buddies and want to stir up more trouble just because I've piss them off.
Right, you're on their radar now.
I'm on the radar.
And that is a big one to me, the legal aspect of it. Not even if you've ever done something wrong, but say you're driving home tomorrow and you get in a car accident and that other person sues you. Mm-hmm. And that lawyer is going to try to make you look like a bad person, like a scumbag. So if they can get a court order to go through, say, all your emails, maybe you sent an email about the accident or something, and so they get a court order saying we want access to his emails. Next thing you know, they have access to all your entire email account, your entire email history going back 10 or 20 years, or however long you've had that email account. What have you done with your email account 10 years ago? What have you said? What relationship? ex-girlfriends that you've broken up with
Right.
or said dirty things to on an email. Do you want that in court? You know, all these things are legit concerns.
Well, I'm not the same person I was a year ago. I mean, we've all evolved,
Right.
So I don't want to be, compared to who I was a year ago. Not that who I was a year ago is a horrible person, but like my thought processes on politics have changed. My thought processes on homesteading and on all these things have changed. So. Yeah, like 10 years ago, oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like you were a different person back then.
10 years ago.
In a different place.
2008.
In different relationships. And, or maybe you were telling, some jokes that, at the time. So that's a really interesting one. Like if, like somebody like a Hillary Clinton used to be against gay marriage. And now you can never come out and say that you're against gay marriage. You'd get crucified if you said that publicly. And as recently as 10 years ago, the mood has shifted so much that, now you can't say that. So what else could have been in an email 10 years ago that was that is now politically incorrect, that if was admitted in court, could make you look like a racist or a bigot or whatever, whatever it is,
right.
A homophobe or, yeah.
10 years ago, I can think of a buddy of mine. He's of Asian descent. Like he was born in here, but I mean, he looks, he looks like an Asian dude. And we would, joke and call each other racist names. That was we just played around like that. But out of context, if someone didn't know our relationship, or just someone saw emails or, saw text messages, they'd be like, oh my God, that guy hates Asian people.
Right. And that's exactly how a lawyer would spin that in court.
Yeah.
You'd be like, on January 27th of 2010, did you call your Asian friend blah?
Right.
I guess I did. Because you have my email records. You obviously know the answer to that is yes.
I don't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday.
Exactly. So do you want that? So to go on with this, do you want that kind of stuff? Do you want to be leaving those trails? And what can we do from like a privacy standpoint to make some of that stuff a little harder?
Right.
Or not leave those trails in the first place. Because the big point here is once the information's out there, you can't take it back. Once you get in that car accident, once you get the court order to disclose your email, once you get the bad thing happens to you and you've got 6 news vans on your front lawn, you can't take your privacy back then. It's too late.
Right.
So the time for a lot of this is now. And there's some pretty low-hanging fruit, I think, that a lot of people can do to kind of build that up.
Right, sort of preventative. So same thing in medicine. Like we're talking about the stuff I like, which is more preventative instead of interventional stuff. And on that note, what you're talking about, it's not. We're not going to touch on things like we're hiding from. Okay, this is going to get us off the radar of the NSA or all that kind of far out there type stuff. It's more like maybe I don't want to be a commodity to third parties anymore. Maybe I just want to be a little harder to find or something like that. We're not.
Do I want to file at whatever marketing company that says here's his name and he likes this, and this, and he doesn't like this and this, and he's got 2.2 kids and whatever else. Like, do I want that in somebody's database? Right. Especially a database that could be breached.
Yeah, right. Because I've heard it's not if, it's not if these companies get breached, it's more like when.
Yeah. I mean, would you want your entire, Amazon history being public? Like, everything you've ever bought on Amazon?
No.
Or everything you've ever bought at, Target or Walmart? I mean, some of that's not, it's probably not bad. You don't buy anything. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But, do you really, if you're buying, I don't know, if you buy a box of condoms every week versus you buy a box of condoms once every 6 years, somebody could do something with that piece of information to embarrass you.
Right.
Or, just make your life crappy,
Well, that makes me think of, how do I put, so someone I was close with a while back, we were kind of talking about that. This was about the time that Edward Snowden, that whole thing came out. And she said something along the line of, well, I don't have anything to hide kind of thing. And for some reason that rubbed me the wrong way. And, I don't know who came up with this analogy, but it fits. It works for me. And it's like, that whole I don't have anything to hide. Well, when I'm in the restroom, powdering my nose, I don't have anything to hide, right? But I want a certain amount of privacy. I want to be able to powder my nose, sit on the toilet with a certain amount of dignity, or like alone.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like same thing with privacy and security on these digital topics that we're going to be talking about. I want to be able to do that without someone digitally looking over my shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like everybody poops, but would you want your phone making a recording of the audio every time you poop and like uploading that to the internet attached to your name?
Yeah.
Like,
no.
I mean, that's obviously an extreme example, but it's the same thing. Like, yeah, you don't have something to hide, quote unquote, there, but that doesn't mean that you wouldn't like some privacy around it.
and it's reasonable. I not do anything illegal or wrong, but I kind of want some privacy. Let's see. So privacy and security.
So one of the things to talk about when you're talking about privacy, I think, is the threat. Like, what threat are you actually thinking about?
Oh yeah.
So I wrote down a little sheet of notes here of some questions, and these are from the EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, which is a big digital civil rights organization. Follow them, give them money, things like that. They're good people.
So this is the threat model.
Yeah, it's kind of they have a great surveillance self-defense whole series of articles and stuff, and they kind of do it for people in say you're in an oppressive country or something like that, where these people are actually trying to tell their stories, get their news out, get information without getting arrested and possibly executed or something like that for doing something that may not be illegal because of where they live, or may not be legal because of where they live. So anyways, the EFF publishes this surveillance self-defense paper or series of articles, and they have 5 questions in their threat modeling, and I think they're really good ways of thinking about privacy. So it's, what do you want to protect is number 1. Who do you want to protect it from? Obviously that's very different whether you're trying to protect it from a state actor who can, backdoor all your internet communications versus just like, a marketing company or somebody like that. Mm-hmm. How likely is it that you will need to protect it? That's the difference between, the news being a reporter being able to look up your address. If you get into, say a self-defense shooting, maybe that's a very low probability of happening versus, and you're worried about the news showing up on your front door versus, Facebook getting your marketing. Obviously that's an extremely likely thing, or your marketing info, that's extremely likely. So you got to weigh those against each other. Mm-hmm. The 4th one is, how bad are the consequences if you fail? Mm-hmm. So that's something to weigh. If you live in, some Middle Eastern country or something, and you're, say an activist or, of a sexual orientation that's banned in that country, if you fail at protecting that piece of information, that could be disastrous for you. Okay. Whereas Facebook, if Facebook finds out that I like, Jeeps or something, that's all right. The consequences aren't very high there.
Right.
And then the 5th question is, how much trouble are you willing to go through to prevent it? Which kind of brings me to my next point, which is privacy and security are both different, but they also have you have to weigh them against convenience.
Right.
They're all going to have a cost in terms of convenience.
Cost in terms of financial or time or both or.
Yep. Because if they were convenient and private, you would already be doing them.
Right.
So there is a level of inconvenience there. except for one, I think, and we'll talk about password managers shortly, that I think actually is a convenience help and will improve your privacy and your security. And if I had one recommendation to people, it would be start using a password manager, because it actually is more convenient and ups your privacy and your security. It just takes the steps to get it set up.
So out of the handful of things we're going to touch on today, that's the number one suggestion or number one place to start.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
for you.
And so do you want to just jump into it?
Well, I'd like to emphasize, so if it's not obvious, this threat model that we're talking about with the 5 points, that ties into the digital security and privacy, but I think it's portable to other areas. I mean, we were just talking about earlier, I have, maybe a few bucks in cash, and I was talking about like, I kind of need to, kind of need to not keep it in a cigar box or something like that, right? So walking that through the threat modeling is, what do I want to protect? Well, I want to protect, my little bit of cash at home, right? And who do I want to protect it from? Well, any old Joe six-pack, I suppose, that might want to kick in the door or sneak in the window or, something like that. What's the third one?
How likely is it that you will need to protect it?
Yeah. So, God, I don't know.
I don't know. Do you live in a high crime neighborhood? Do you have like a crackhead cousin that comes over once a week and lives in or maybe lives in your house? So maybe it's really likely, or maybe it's not. Maybe you've got a dog that just likes to chew up dollar bills,
Yeah, those are actually really good. My dog, she chewed my dang laptop charger. I had to get a new one. This is actually a new one I got 2 days ago. So how likely is it that you will need to protect it? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to quantify that, but some of that outside the box stuff is, what about a fire? Mm-hmm. We talked about fire resistant safes and stuff like that. What about some, college kid, kicking the door in, or someone trying to get through the window, or, police, all those sort of things. How bad are the consequences if you fail? Well, if someone finds it, I'm out, however much cash is in there.
Right, but is that a big deal to you? Like, is it your life savings, or is that lunch money tomorrow?
Right.
It's very different if you're, a millionaire versus somebody that's scraping to get by.
And I love that question, like, what are the consequences if you fail? And then, how much trouble are you willing to go through to prevent or protect it? And that's a great question. Like, how much am I willing to invest in a safe, fire-resistant safe, or someplace to hide it or cache it or whatever. So I love this threat model because it applies to other areas. Mm-hmm. What about if I'm driving or trying to protect something in my vehicle, or my job even? I feel like I could even run my job through that. Other areas. That's all. I just want to make a point. Yeah, let's jump in on your number one if you wanted to.
Okay, yeah. So let's talk about passwords. So if there was one thing that I think people could improve, and if I could get like everybody in the world, including my mom and my sister, and, my mom, who is, not the most computer literate person or whatever, it would be password hygiene. Just start doing the right things with your passwords. We've all heard the things of make complex passwords that aren't words in the dictionary, and use the special characters and caps and lowercase and stuff like that. That makes it really hard to remember your passwords. I know certain people have like a big old list they just write down, and that has its pluses and its minuses. A, it's not easy to hack, but B, it's easy to lose. But what I think a lot of people end up doing is using the same passwords for multiple accounts. And that's an awful idea.
Right.
You remember, I don't remember, it was probably a year or two ago that Target got hacked and all their login information got released. At least I think that's what was released. There's a bunch of other stuff. But if your login and password on Target gets hacked, what are the chances that you use the same email address as your login, and maybe you use that same password over on Walmart.com. Maybe you use it for your banking website. Maybe you use it for something else. You can see the vulnerability there.
Right.
Kind of a terrible idea. But it's hard, to remember a unique password for everything. So you use a password manager. And what this is it's a plugin that you put in your browser. Well, there are a couple different forms. There are ones that are strictly local on your computer that just store it locally. One is KeePass or KeePass X and XC. There's different versions. And that's a local one. I actually recommend one called LastPass, which is basically cloud-based. And you log into it, you use one master password, and then once you open it, it auto-pastes your passwords into websites. So when you go to Amazon or whatever, it just auto-pastes it in there. And that works about 95% of the time. Sometimes you got to go and manually select the website and make it paste in there. But basically, this allows you, and it'll generate secure passwords too. And so this allows you to have a 16-digit, completely random garbage, random special characters, uppercase, lowercase, everything password for every website. And it'll actually do tests on your passwords to find duplicates and rule them out. So you can install it and just kind of let it, just kind of start putting in your passwords as you naturally store them or as you naturally enter them, and it'll record them, and then it'll give you little flags every once in a while saying, hey, this is a duplicate. You should change one of these.
I'd get a lot of those flags.
Yeah, and I did a ton in the beginning, and then eventually you don't get any anymore. And there are certain websites where I still might use a common password because I really don't care. If somebody logs into a message board and makes a post under
Petco website.
Yeah, if they can see my Petco hit, and this probably isn't the right answer because there's probably some information that they could glean from that.
Right.
There are certain things that I really don't care if they compromise my passwords because they're basically throwaway accounts, and I'm probably never going to use it or whatever. But anyways, password manager. So I recommend LastPass. It's the one that I use. There are a whole bunch of them. You can see there's 1Password. I can't even think of some of the others off the top of my head, but there are a bunch out there. LastPass is a good one. It does introduce a common point of failure that yes, if that 1Password gets hacked or whatever, somebody could theoretically access all of your passwords. And for that reason, you memorize one really good password, and hopefully that'll protect you. A password you've never used anywhere else, that kind of thing.
Makes me think, do they have a two-factor, where you have the actual device that plugs in?
They do.
They do?
So I don't know if LastPass, so that can bring us to my next point on my little note card here, or my note sheet, two-factor authentication. That's point 2 is basically use it. SMS, this is where you log into the website and it sends you a text message with a 6-digit code and you put that in. So the text is actually not the most secure way to do that. It's better than nothing. But if you have other options, either device-based, which is something like Google Authenticator or Authy, it's just an app on your phone that just generates a code every 30 seconds or whatever. And you put that code in, and basically based off the time sinks between the codes, it knows if that's a good one. So that is the one that I use on most of my websites is those two-factor authentication that's device-based.
Because I've heard that the SMS ones can get, people can sort of hack those SMS two-factor, what is it, Coinbase? People have lost their cryptocurrencies because someone will port in and get that information, and then boom, all their crypto's gone.
Yeah, so SMS is not secure.
Right.
We'll talk about that when we get to the messaging section. But basically, everyone and their uncle can read your SMS text messages. Mm-hmm. They're not encrypted in any way. But there are also attacks that you can do that are basically allow somebody to reroute your text messages to them rather than to you. And if somebody was trying to hack into your bank account or your Coinbase or something like that, that would be a really good time for them to do that because there's a lot of money on the line and it would actually make it worthwhile.
Well, I can say this is my next step because, we've talked about this, and I told you I've got a sheet of paper from 2004 that's got different email accounts and, other accounts and stuff with usernames and passwords that, you've seen this paper. It's got coffee stains and
it's
others.
pretty gross looking. Like both from a hygiene perspective and from a security perspective, it's gross.
That is not. Yeah, I definitely.
Yeah.
So that's the next place I'm going to start.
Well, I think it's an excellent place to start. And another benefit of a password manager is you can actually institute an extra level of security here, which is using your actual login as your login credential as a complex password as well. So rather than putting like first.last@gmail.com for your login on all these websites, you can make the login complex as well. So it's, a complex, 16 characters, upper, lower, and special characters for both your login and your password. A, that makes it much harder to crack, but B, it makes it harder to correlate you across accounts. So if somebody were to hack into targets and get your email is first.last@gmail.com, now they can go try that same login and password over at Walmart and Amazon and a bunch of other places.
Right.
But if it's just a random string of characters, they have no idea who you are, and they can't. It's not nearly as portable from site to site, and they can't know like, hey, this is first name person. Let me just Google him, or let me go try to log into the Gmail account itself.
I like that.
So and with a password manager, this is all really easy to just have 16 characters of gibberish for your login and 16 characters of gibberish for your password. You can do the, I don't remember what the math is, but 16 times 16 to the, squared or whatever. It's a lot of combinations that basically would take a supercomputer a long time to brute force crack that.
I like it.
And 16 is just a number that I'm pulling out of my butt. If you can make those passwords 32, 64 characters, if you can make them huge, why not? Every extra character you're adding is an extra order of magnitude that it's going to take to brute force crack that password. So if you can make a 32 character password, do it.
So let's see, that was privacy.com.
What's that?
Oh, no,
LastPass.
No, that was LastPass.
LastPass. That's an action item. Everybody go download LastPass. And LastPass is a free service for like on your computer, but they do charge a subscription. I think it's $24 a year now, so $2 a month. not going to break the bank if you want to use it as on your mobile device. Which a lot of your logins, you're going to use them on your mobile device. But you can try it out for free on your desktop. On your desktop, and then if you like it and you see the utility in it, which I'm pretty sure anybody privacy-minded will, you'll see the value in paying $2 a month to get hooked up with LastPass on your mobile device too.
Sweet. So starting with the number one tip, what's next?
After passwords?
Yeah.
I don't know. You want to jump onto email?
Sure.
Okay.
How about the? Well, what's that expression that Gmail's like probably I don't have any numbers, but it's got to be like the number one email provider, I'd imagine.
Probably.
And if you look around and you're like, there's an expression like if you look around, you're like, well, I don't know what the product or service is with this company, so then you're the product or service, right? So they're scraping your information from emails and via the voice over protocol, that phone stuff, and they're scraping all that information and selling that. And so the product is kind of the short version. So
not to mention, let me throw in one more, that because of Google Analytics being installed on basically every website on the internet has Google Analytics installed so that they can see how many hits their website is getting. That is all cross-correlated to your Gmail account as well. So they literally know every website you're visiting if you do it while you're logged into your Gmail. And even if you don't do it logged into your Gmail, unless you've got some pretty advanced strategies, they probably have a pretty good idea of who you are. But if you do it logged into your Gmail, they know exactly every website you visit in that browser.
You like octopus.
Yeah, exactly. You're into like weird, tentacle porn or whatever. Like they know it if you visit those websites under your
whether or not you're signed in, right?
Yeah, whether or not you're signed in. I mean, there's all kinds of things we can talk about, like browser fingerprinting and
this is
correlating your IP address and Mac.
This is why I'm like, why is Facebook getting skewered when all these other major companies are doing it?
Well, they deserve it. They deserve it. It's just they're not unique. I'm glad somebody's getting it because it's making other people kind of reel themselves back.
It's been an excuse for us to have this conversation. So
the more people that have this conversation, the better. Especially when they start maybe dialing back their use of Gmail or dialing back their use of Facebook or whatever because they realize that they're freaking creepy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the big one is going to an encrypted email provider. The one I've gone to is Proton Mail.
Likewise, I have also settled on Proton Mail as my encrypted email provider of choice.
Yeah.
So one of the disadvantages of email is inherently insecure. It was never designed to be confidential, just like the way that the internet backbone is set up behind it. There's a ton of data and metadata in the email headers, not to mention the text not being, or the content of the message is not necessarily text, not being encrypted. So, hence the need for an encrypted email provider, and that's where Proton Mail comes in. Proton Mail, also a free service. At the basic level, and then as you exceed a certain number of megabytes or gigabytes, they start asking you to pay. But you can try it out for free. So highly recommended. And what Proton Mail does is it's basically encrypted. Both in transit, the messages are encrypted. So if I send my email from my Proton Mail to your Proton Mail, nobody can read that in my draft folder, in transit, or in your inbox when it arrives there. And that includes Proton Mail themselves. It's encrypted in a way that it's called zero knowledge, which basically means that even if Proton Mail were to get a court order or had a employee go rogue or something like that, they couldn't go in and read your email. They would just see a string of gibberish. And if they get a court order, then they'll turn over your email. They're based in Switzerland, so they'd have to get a Swiss court order too. But they would turn over a file that's just like, okay, here's like a 100 megabyte file of all of his emails, and somebody would open it up and it's just gibberish because it's all encrypted.
Right. So there's the end-to-end encryption. Even they can't decrypt and read the emails. But you touched on it. They're a Swiss-based company, so all the data is protected by the Swiss privacy laws, which, the way I understand it, the Swiss privacy laws are much better than other countries like here, the UK for sure.
Right.
So yeah.
And that's what I hear. I'm not an expert on Swiss law, but
right.
The at very least, it's going to be a pain in the ass if somebody, if a U.S. client receives a court order or something like that, they're going to have to go to Switzerland and try to get a Swiss court to order that information to be released. And anytime you're dealing with international stuff like that, it adds a layer of difficulty. Which, if you're trying to keep your data protected, a layer of difficulty is a layer of security. So I'm a big fan of Proton Mail.
Yep, and like you said, they have the free service, and then if you want more data and more email addresses, you can sign up for that for the paid service.
Yeah, and that's another cool thing that Proton Mail lets you do is if you do the paid service, you can have multiple email addresses, so you could actually segment them to be like, hey, this one I'm only going to use for personal communications with certain people. Say, all my business contacts, I use this email. All my personal contacts, I use this email. And all my, marketing and commercial emails, signing up for Walmart.com or whatever, I use this email. And that prevents people from being able to tie those together on the kind of the corporate end. Like Walmart can't talk to Amazon, can't talk to Facebook to tie those three accounts together because you're using a different one for all three of them.
I was trying to look at the pricing per year, but it was in euros.
Okay, yeah.
I can't do math.
It's like $4 or $6 a month or something for Proton Mail if you do the individual.
Something. I mean, if you're not doing for like an organization, it's about looks like it's about $5 a month. Yeah. So you could sign up for the free version, which you get one address, 500 megabytes of storage.
And there's nothing stopping you from signing up with multiple email addresses.
Right.
You just have to log out of one and log into the other one.
Right. And I may or may not have done that.
Likewise.
3 times myself.
Likewise. I may or may not have just different Proton Mail accounts that I've used for different things.
Yeah.
One of them being the one that I actually send emails from and receive emails from like people.
Well, and throwing $5 a month to support a company that, seems to be behind privacy and security.
Absolutely.
I'm happy to throw $5 a month at that.
Yeah, and that's what you have to remember is Google is generating way more than $5 a month off of you.
Yeah.
By selling your data. So are you willing to pay that $5 a month to support a company so they don't have to sell your data?
And hopefully ensuring that company is going to be around a while.
Right. That business model survives.
Yeah.
And the more people that see that, the more people go into other, privacy and security focused industry or, products because they're like, oh, Proton Mail is doing great by focusing on privacy. Maybe I'll come out with, say, a encrypted messenger app.
And there is. And
I'm setting you up for a nice little segue right there. Come on. There's a nice easy toss. Knock that out of the park.
And there are encrypted messaging services, one of which is Signal.
Yep.
They can do both messaging and phone calls and other stuff, I'm sure, but I just use it for messaging at this point.
Yep.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so the messaging, the first thing to be aware of is that your text messages, your SMS or MMS messages are completely unsecure. Well, I guess it depends on who your carrier is, and I don't remember which two. I think it's Verizon and Sprint are completely in the clear. Like anybody can monitor them. And then AT&T and T-Mobile they have a layer of encryption, but still everybody at the phone company can read them. But they're a little harder to intercept over the air. But either way, the phone company has a complete log of your text messages going back, and that again, a court order could get them. A rogue employee, or whatever it is, could get your entire text message history of every text message you've ever sent from any of your accounts, really. So encrypted messaging for me right there makes a lot of sense. And you've got Facebook Messenger, which as far as I know is not encrypted at all. Just to go down some of the bigger ones, you've got WhatsApp, which is encrypted, but WhatsApp is owned by Facebook, so it's still harvesting things like your contact list and stuff. So I don't really trust WhatsApp. I use it just because there's a lot of other people that use it. And that's always the downside of these privacy apps is you got to talk your friends into using them as well. But the WhatsApp is low-hanging fruit to get somebody to use that one. Oh, to go back to Proton Mail, one thing we didn't touch on about getting other people to use it is Proton Mail is only end-to-end encrypted when emailing other Proton Mail users. If you send it to like a Gmail, obviously it's got all the vulnerabilities of Gmail there. Should have touched on that.
Yeah, and there's a way, I haven't gotten to that level, but there's a way you can encrypt it and then send someone the little code to decrypt it.
Yeah.
But it's like, you got
that's that privacy versus convenience thing.
Yeah. It's a hassle to if I'm trying to send someone an email, I don't want to have to text them the code. Especially in a professional environment, they're going to be like, what's the, what's this James Bond
I believe what
stuff?
you're talking about is what's called PGP, which stands for pretty good privacy. And that was the way that encrypted email was done in the past, where basically you had to send them a code through another means and they could unlock the email. Basically, I think it's not dead technology, but it's why, if you're going to go through that hassle, just get a Proton Mail account.
Yeah.
Anyways, back to
Yeah.
messaging. Are you done?
Yeah. I was just. I mean, there is a way. I mean, you got
Yeah,
to
there
send
is,
yeah, go
You're
ahead.
basically sending an encrypted file within the email as an attachment, and then sending them the password a different way. But anyways, back to messaging. So yeah, Signal and Wire are the two, but there are a bunch of other ones that are also encrypted. WhatsApp is encrypted, but again, it's owned by Facebook, so it's probably harvesting a bunch of your data, even if it can't read your actual text of your messages. It still knows you're talking to, somebody and sending them 20 text messages a day or whatever.
But Zuck said during the congressional hearing that it's encrypted. Yeah.
It may be, but that doesn't mean that they can't read all the metadata too.
Right.
And I don't know. I'm not going to say that for sure that they can, but because it's a Facebook product and Facebook trades in your information, I don't trust it.
Mm-hmm.
And at very least, I would bet that it is harvesting your contact info, and so Facebook knows who you talk to, how often you talk to them, even if it can't read the actual text of each message.
Yeah, I don't know what their business model is, but they've got to be. Yeah, there's got to be something there.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't really trust WhatsApp, but I do use it because encryption is better than no encryption. But yeah, Signal. Another feature I really like with Signal is you can put a timestamp on a message to make it so that your messages delete after a certain period of time, which I'm a huge fan of. Usually there's no reason why I need a text message that's more than a month old. It just from that perspective, do you really want somebody to be able to go read your text messages from 2 years ago? Me, no. So after, you can set it from anywhere from a minute to, I want to say it's a week, maybe, that they basically self-destruct and go away. And again, Signal, at least, is same deal. It's zero knowledge, so that the Signal people can't read your messages. And if they were to get a court order, they couldn't disclose anything besides encrypted gibberish to the court. And I believe Signal is Norwegian-based.
I don't know that part.
Yeah, they're overseas somewhere, I'm pretty sure.
That's pretty cool. So I can send you a message and have it disappear after 1 minute, 10 seconds, after you read it.
Yep.
It can disappear after 5 seconds, 1 minute, 5 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour, up to 1 day. That's kind of cool.
It's only 1 day? I thought you could go longer than that.
Well, okay. I mean, there might be another, I'm only,
okay.
Maybe I'm not digging hard enough, but yeah.
Yeah, because really, for most text messages, you don't really need to keep them longer than a day, probably.
Yeah.
So yeah, Signal, use it. The one downside of Signal is that it is not completely anonymous. Well, it's not anonymous at all because it's tied to your phone number. It uses your phone number to set up the account. And there are ways around that. Too complicated to get into here, but if you're really interested, you can start Googling. But it is not anonymous. It is just encrypted. They will know, if somebody looks deeply enough, they will know that you're using Signal, you're sending message traffic across it, and be able to figure out, there are ways to do attacks where you can figure out who they're talking to, just not so much what the contents of the message are.
I'm trying to figure out where Signal is.
Yeah.
What's next?
We kind of touched on some of the browser stuff a little earlier. That's the next one that I can
hit it,
jam on for a little bit.
You've definitely tinkered with the browser strategies. Yeah.
So your web browser. We talked a little earlier about Google being able to track you via Google Analytics from website to website, and they basically can, if you've ever logged into Google from that browser, they can track you across every website that you go to, pretty much. So one browser security strategy that I like to use is separate browsers. You're using different browsers for different things. I'm a big fan of a Mac, just because Windows, especially with Windows 10, became very privacy unfriendly. They're actually in the big data harvesting business as well, just like they're as bad as Google and Microsoft and or correction, Google and Facebook, as far as harvesting what you're doing online. So Windows is pretty much dead to me, except I have to use it at work, and on some old machines. But one strategy. So basically, how this works is if you've ever logged into Google or Facebook or whatever through that browser, they are tracking you, and they put a cookie in that browser, and each website you go to, it's adding more and more cookies and more data to those cookies to figure out and track you across the website. So the way to deal with this, the easy way, or at least the surface level way, is to kill your cookies. And in my case, I use Firefox, and I went into the privacy settings and basically made it so that every time I close Firefox, it just nukes everything.
Okay.
So basically, if I need to go in, if I do need to log into a website like Google, I close Firefox so it nukes everything, open it back up with a clean browser, log into, say, Google or Facebook or whatever, do what I need to do, and then close it again. So it nukes it on the front end and on the back end. Because if you've gone to all these websites, even if you've never logged in, they've all put cookies, and they just know you as user 12345 and then if at the very end of that session you log in, now it just associated user 12345 with your real Google account or Facebook account. So it puts those two pieces of data together. So you need to nuke it or close it to get rid of all that history at the front end and at the back end. That brings us to something called browser fingerprinting, which is just like being able to see your browser and what resolution it's displaying at and things like that, and what add-ons or extensions you have installed. And by doing that, you can come up with a fairly individualized picture of who this person is. When you use a browser, it sends all of that to the website. It says I'm using a Firefox, and it's displaying at this resolution, and it's coming from this IP address, and all that stuff gets sent to the website that you go to. So the more you can change that up, or the more that you can hide your browser fingerprint, the more you're not anonymous, but you're more of a needle in a haystack. So my recommendation is to use the minimum number of browser plugins to reduce that browser signature that you have. So some of the popular privacy plugins, there's like Ghostery, there's NoScript, which prevents scripts from running in your browser. There's LastPass that we've just touched on. There's a bunch of other good privacy browser plugins, and you just have to weigh that. Do I want what this plugin does versus the browser signature that it's gonna give the websites that I'm visiting. So that's just something to be aware of. So anyways, my overall browser strategy is I use multiple browsers. There's another one called Brave, which is kind of a privacy focused browser. There's another one called it's Firefox 59, I think it's called, which is also privacy focused. It's just basically another version of Firefox. But they, I use each of these browsers for different things. Like Firefox nukes itself every time I close it. Brave I use in a way where I use that for my like passive reading. If I'm just going to go browse around and I'm not going to log into anything, I use Brave for that. And then I actually do use Safari, which is the one built into Apple products. And I use that for websites that I need to stay logged into or that it's inconvenient to log out of. But that's all that I use it for. So like when I have to file reports at work or something, I have to log into a system to do that. And I leave that one logged in. So that's really only for those websites, my time card, my work reports and things like that. Stay logged in on that one. And that keeping those separated just, again, makes me harder to track across the internet. And I make sure that I close down Firefox frequently. Whenever I'm about to do something that could compromise my privacy, I close it, reopen it, so that it wipes those cookies and that history.
sweet. I like it. That's kind of my next step after I get my last pass rolling, get a better browser strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important, and it's fairly simple because you probably already have multiple browsers on your computer anyways.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of, thinking about it intelligently. Like, what am I doing? Do I need to log into something, and what data am I going to be sending? Okay, which browser do I use for that?
What about maybe we jump in on you want to do virtual protected network?
Sure. So VPNs, virtual private networks, private, protected. I've heard it both ways.
VPN. Some of the features that a VPN has tie into other, like masking browsing history, or your neighbor was doing something out there. I got distracted. Like masking the browser history, or keeping what you're looking at online hidden from your internet service provider, because they're selling your information too. So, so they have different features. There are different VPNs out there, but let's go over some of the common features. How about hiding your IP address? Well, if you hide the IP address, the IP address tells who your internet service provider is. That could show your city. That could show your state. It could show what kind of browser. I mean, you're talking about browser. It can show what kind of browser you have, your operating system. You could pull up the location on the map if you have the IP address. So a VPN can hide that or mask that.
Not to mention it could be correlated with your other internet activity.
Right.
If you logged into, tentacleporn.com from your IP address, and then you go over to, google.com and, do something on Google from that same IP address, there are ways to correlate that.
Boom, linked.
Yep.
So why would I want to hide the IP address? Well, again, this goes back to, I don't want my information as a commodity or sold to websites, third parties, advertisers. My location, I just said it. You can pull up the location on a map of the IP address if it's not masked. I don't want my location being out there to bad actors. What about my family members? What about a significant other? Or if I have children, like, I don't want their location being out there available to the world. Again, going back to what I said earlier, like, what if I inadvertently or intentionally upset the wrong person, and somehow they can, find out where I am based on the IP address. Another thing you can do is VPNs can help with and I touched on it, web browsing anonymously. What if you have a job or a political position where your browsing history kind of puts you at risk for job loss, or your reputation gets tarnished, maybe embarrassment? The VPN can mask that.
And I'm gonna cut you off there and add something. There's a difference between anonymous and anonymish. So a VPN is pretty good for privacy, and it's pretty good for security. But at best, it makes you anonymish. There are still ways to trace it back. It's just going to require a lot of resources on the part, or a screw up on your part.
Right.
If I'm using a VPN and I log into my Gmail account and then I go to a controversial website afterwards, even through a VPN, those can probably be correlated with each other. That's a screw up on my end if I allow that to happen. But it is something to be aware of, that privacy and anonymity, especially, anonymity is very hard to achieve, and it is very easy to compromise in ways that you may not even be aware that you're doing it.
Right, and
if you need anonymity, man, you have to be careful. Holy cow, you have to be careful, because there's so many ways to break through it. And we'll talk about that next.
No. I mean, that's a good point. I mean, there are different ways to go about that. I mean, you can combine different, like you can combine a Tor browser with a VPN, and like there are different ways to do it. But this is kind of like maybe entry level or where to start.
Well,
right?
I mean, again, we're going back to our threat model. Who are we trying to hide from here?
Right.
Are we trying to hide from a state level actor that basically can coerce and basically owns the telecom network, or are we trying to hide from whatever the marketer down the street that's trying to figure out if he should send me some coupons in the mail or whatever, or something in between,
probably something in between.
So you mentioned Tor there, and a VPN. Tor is just a kind of a badass VPN is the way it works. But let me explain real quick, just for the listeners that may not be familiar, what a VPN is actually doing. It's taking your traffic and encrypting it on your end, at your computer. It's sending it through a company that has a say you're using, basically they have a server. You send it to that server encrypted. That server decrypts it at their end and then goes out and talks to the website that you told it to, so Google or Facebook or your bank or whatever it is. So that until you log into that website, they don't know who you are. All they see is it's coming from your VPN server. That's different from, say, HTTPS, which is what a lot of web traffic is now, which is encrypted web traffic. It's great. You should use it whenever you can. There's an app, or a browser extension called HTTPS Everywhere, which is a really good one. It's made by the EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and it basically forces any website that can go HTTPS to go HTTPS. And the S at the end just stands for, I don't know if it stands for secure or what, but something. It's encrypted. So the problem with HTTPS is your ISP, while they can't see your traffic, they can still see who you're talking to. So they know that you went to Google or Facebook or, whatever porn site or whatever you're doing. Whereas a VPN masks that from your ISP. All they see is your computer is sending encrypted traffic to your VPN's server. And there's a lot of encrypted traffic or a little bit of encrypted traffic or whatever it is. That's all your ISP can see. So that's who you're really hiding from here is Comcast or AT&T or whoever your ISP is, or Verizon or Sprint or AT&T, because you can put these on your mobile device as well. So yeah, that's what a VPN's doing, and then Tor is just like above and beyond on that, which basically they add in multiple hops. And it's a custom configured, it's free, it's really designed for like dissidents and things, but it was a DoD program back in the day. I think it was the Navy that invented Tor. And it basically adds multiple hops. I believe it adds 3 hops. So it makes you just very hard to track. It's a little slow. I've played around with it before. Never really needed to use it, like needed it. But it's something interesting to play with, and it's a good capability to have and to know that it exists. And because you get those multiple hops, which makes you even harder. Although Tor also not anonymous. There are ways to, by watching the exit nodes and comparing the exit traffic versus the entry traffic, figure out who you might be, or at least narrow it down significantly. So. Again, not completely anonymous, but
well, and then one argument is that if you're going to be drawing a bit more attention from, well, you could just be drawing more attention if you're using Tor from the Department of Making You Sad or whoever.
Right.
So something to keep in mind too.
When you're using Tor, you are a very big needle in a small haystack.
Right.
When you're using a VPN, you're an average sized needle in an average sized haystack. So there is some security by obscurity going on there. So there may be some benefits. I wouldn't necessarily use Tor for my everyday stuff. Yeah,
and there's some other stuff. I mean, we could have gotten into proxy and and Tor, but those are almost standalone discussions. Another thing that VPN can help with is public Wi-Fi. So an easy way to eavesdrop is through public Wi-Fi hotspots like coffee stores, McDonald's, stuff like that, because they're usually lacking encryption. Although people think that because it's like an established, successful business that, hey, it's got to be safe, right? But they're not encrypted. How easy is it to monitor or steal information at these public Wi-Fi hotspots? It's super easy, in fact. There are 4 right off the top of my head, websites that you can go and get applications to steal information at these public Wi-Fi hotspots. You can go to FaceNIF, you can go to Firesheep, you can go to Ethereal, you can go to Wireshark, and they all have. Anyway, I'll just throw that out there.
It's easy.
Yeah, it's
public
super easy.
Hotspots are not secure.
It's very disturbing because I can think back to however many times I've been at the coffee store or McDonald's or the airport or wherever, and poking around.
HTTPS will actually give you a decent amount of protection there. It's not perfect. Nothing in security is ever perfect. But yeah, if you're in one of those places, definitely make sure you're using HTTPS. And I wouldn't. I'm not a big fan of like logging onto my bank and stuff like that on those kind of networks. I just don't do it. I would rather connect over my hotspot on my phone than use theirs, even though I'm burning my data.
Right. And the virtual protected networks in general, they're going to deploy encryption layers over these tunneled connections. So even if you have a bad actor, someone walking around accessing the data on these public Wi-Fi hotspots, it's going to look like gobbledygook because it's encrypted.
Right.
So if you're checking your email in the Wi-Fi, your bank account, looking at your crypto accounts, whatever, social networking websites, if you're sharing sensitive information online, these VPNs, they do encrypt the information. What about identity protection? A lot of these bad actors that do phishing attacks, data snoopers, hackers, they want to get identification credentials or they want access to online accounts to steal data. Well, the virtual protected network can hide identification to prevent ID theft. That's another benefit too of VPNs. What about smart homes or Internet of Things? I'm not there yet, but I mean, there's a lot of that going around. Like the smart home devices, interconnected, sharing information and network connectivity. Like that's becoming hot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
If you have a light bulb in your house that's Wi-Fi connected,
I have one.
I've got a couple, and I bet that Philips or whoever makes that setup, they can probably build a pretty accurate pattern of life for when you turn those lights on and off.
Right,
For what your day looks like. Or then, who knows, somebody could hack into that and say like, okay, this guy's gone from his house every day from this time to this time because that's when his lights are all off.
No, that's a great point because a way that bad actors can gain access to your local area network is by imitating the router. So ARP spoofing is a way for hackers to attack these private networks. It's address resolution protocol, ARP spoofing. They look at how insecure our digital world is with the map of these vulnerable The wireless vulnerable networks. Go to wiggle.net. That's going to pull up a map. You can see all these unsecure or insecure networks. What about all these Yahoos? I didn't even know this until looking into it, but people even go around looking for these vulnerable wireless networks. And it's called war driving. Have you heard of that?
Oh, yeah.
Like driving around looking for them. Or they go on foot, which is called war walking or war jogging.
So back in the day, when internet and Wi-Fi was less reliable, I remember there were times when I played this certain game that I knew, like based on where my buddies' houses were and other networks in that area, like if I needed to log on to that game when my internet was out, which, you know, I distinctly remember a few times when I would drive over to buddies' houses and things and find open Wi-Fi networks to log on to that game. And I won't disclose whether or not I use those Wi-Fi networks, but, you know, my buddy's Wi-Fi network, you know, he didn't even know it. I was sitting outside of his house at 2 a.m. because I needed to log on to this game or to do whatever. And, but yeah, it's a thing, and that was for a fairly innocent purpose.
Yeah.
I just needed to log on to whatever so that my army didn't get destroyed or something. But yeah, there are people that could definitely use that for.
Well, I can remember driving over. This is when I had an apartment back in North Texas. Like I'd drive over to the coffee store because like I didn't want to, like at that point I didn't want to pay the like $60 a month for wireless internet. So I'd drive over to the coffee store just to log in and pay like a bill or whatever, and then drive back home. Like,
Yep.
Just to, so we talked about hey kitty. So we talked about war walking, war jogging, all this war driving, looking for these unencrypted vulnerable networks. So how do we protect ourselves from unwanted snooping on any of these networks? Well, the answer is robust encryption. And part of the answer is these VPNs. I want to give you 2 examples because these really kind of blew my mind away in terms of vulnerability. But one is called Firesheep. Firesheep. It allows any hacker to steal Facebook and Twitter accounts when you browse on public unencrypted Wi-Fi. On these public Wi-Fi networks, the data transmitted between the computer and the public Wi-Fi hotspot or the router, it's unencrypted. In other words, aka available. So they can just steal the Facebook and Twitter account info. Another one called FaceNIF allows cell phone users, someone just walking around with a cell phone, so allows cell phone users to steal Facebook and Twitter accounts by just walking around in a public Wi-Fi hotspot, keeping the app open, and they can gather Facebook and Twitter information of people using that network. So that one is called FaceNIF. So these are not like super top secret applications. You can go online and find them and download them. And if you can do it, well, a bad actor can do it too. Again, the question is, how do we protect against it? Robust encryption. What else?
I don't know, man. I think that about covers it. I mean, there are a lot of rabbit holes we can go down.
Here's some other interesting information that I found when looking at VPN. So if I was typing sensitive information online, I wouldn't let someone stand over my shoulder and watch as I type in health info, financial info. But guess what? There's someone standing behind us looking over our shoulder. And I think you might have said it earlier, but that's the internet service provider. Your internet service provider is keeping logs on your activity. Your ISP has lobbied the FCC to crush privacy and security orders that would kind of prevent them to, or no, not prevent them, that would require them to ensure reasonable protections on our private data and have them ask our permission before selling that data to advertisers and other third parties. So you're the commodity, the product being sold, which is ironic since you're kind of paying for the ISP service. So, I mean, I'll see if I can show that article, but they are actively lobbying the FCC to crush that privacy and security orders.
I think that's the next step, and they may already be doing it. I haven't researched this part too much, but yeah, I mean, what if you're basically Comcast or whoever was selling your web browsing history to whoever to get your political views, get your buying habits, whatever? That's freaking creepy.
Yeah.
And I think when that happens, there'll be another Facebook type blow up with congressional hearings, and hopefully a lot of people will start using VPNs at that point, because that's super creepy, and maybe someday the VPN will be as popular as email and everything. It'll just be a standard thing that you do.
Oh, it's a standard thing that I do now.
Yeah,
like I've got a kill switch, so if I'm on my phone, my cell phone, or my computer, if the VPN dies, well, my browsing dies. So if I when I fire up my phone or my laptop, the VPN comes on automatically. So it's kind of staple in my diet right now.
Good, yeah.
So, we could get into the difference between free and paid, but I think I've already.
Oh yeah, don't use free
VPNs.
Yeah. Free VPNs are usually making their money by selling your data.
Yeah, bottom line, don't use free VPN.
Yeah. So don't.
I've
use
already
those.
beat that one well enough.
Okay, good.
So what's left?
I'd say that's a pretty good stopping point. We can re-pick this up, and we've got to be like an hour in or something.
Yeah. All right, so we've covered quite a bit for this round. We could keep going for a long time, but
yeah, there are a bunch of privacy apps and programs and best practices and services that we could go down.
Well, this is a good hour of information, probably quite a bit to digest for now. So let's put a bow on it, and next time there's plenty of other information to go into, all sorts of cool stuff. Any last thoughts?
Privacy is important. You can't take it back. There's no going back once your data's out there. So it makes sense to protect it before it gets out there. Because when you need privacy, it's too late to try to build it at that point.
Well, go back to that threat model that you talked about. That's a great framework, or process to go through when you're thinking of digital privacy and security. Well, a lot of things, but digital privacy and security, and then your number one is start with LastPass.
yeah. If there was one action item that I could get, even a tenth of the people listening to this podcast to do, it would be start using a password manager. Mm-hmm. And I think LastPass is the most convenient one there.
Sweet. Boom. Drop the mic.
Cool.